Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If it's your first time here, my name's Nick, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about where will cricket be in 50 years time. This is something I think about quite a lot. I have a vested interest in cricket. It is by far and away my favourite sport. And as we all know, cricket's in a state where we just don't know where the future direction is. Test cricket plays a big part of cricket, but is also the backbone of what cricket's been for 150 years. But you have 2020s and franchises where all the money is and how you're drawing fans. So what will that look like in 50 years? So my plan in this video is to go over three key things that I believe will happen that will be the case in 50 years time. We won't be on the intricacies of it. There will be three key actions that'll be in place that will help sustain cricket and keep it as a major sport in the world, but also be able to have the traditional element, but also focus on where the money really is going these days. So lo and behold, I'll now present where I believe cricket will be 50 years from now. The first thing I believe that will happen in 50 years time is something I highlighted before of how big franchise cricket's become. Franchises and boards fight for control of cricket. So how will this look? Well, this is where I've wrote down a few points. The boards will control cricket, but franchises own the economy of cricket. So boards will control the pathways, Test cricket, World Cups, while the franchises will control the 2020 and the 2010 leagues. That is relatively simple, as it sort of is what it is now, but over the next couple of points I'll make, this is where some interesting concepts will be developed. So franchises will be able to auction players and trade players in designated windows. Contracts can be up to 4 years. Players can negotiate the number of competitions played. So as we see now with the South African League going on currently, and a lot of the 2010 leagues in Dubai, is that they're affiliated with IPL teams. So if a player is signed with an IPL contract in the competitions they are in, a player can only play for that team. But the player has the ability to negotiate the amount of competitions they play, so they're not playing for their team all year round with no breaks. A caveat to this is a player can sign with any team in a competition their franchise is not involved in. For example, you got the 100 and the BBL. There's no IPL franchises affiliated with that, so a player can sign with any team in those competitions. Or if there are IPL teams that have teams in the American tournament, for instance, there's only 6 teams in that American tournament, so 4 IPL teams aren't affiliated with it. That means there's those players and those other 4 teams can join any of those teams in that American comp, because there's their franchise is not in that comp. Now on to the next part of this is that boards will implement signing rules with franchises in those contracts. So that will include international duties overriding franchise cricket, and local players can sign with any team. So obviously, international cricket is what players play for. The boards will have the right to put that in contracts, a bit like what you see with football or soccer, as some may call it, in Europe. And that the Europe leagues teams have international windows that players can go play in instead of playing for their club. The local players that can sign with any team. So effectively, let's say the South African comp, for example, IPL and the IPL, South African players could be with an IPL team, but might not want to play for that affiliated club in their domestic comp because it's not where they're from. So they play for their local team. So local players can sign with any team in their domestic comp, even if they're affiliated with a club, just so the domestic scene can benefit from it. Otherwise, it could be one way or the other when it comes to signing players. And it could actually, now that I think about it, it could actually ruin cricket if you don't have that rule in place, because a team might sign the best 6 players from one country, and then if they're affiliated with that team, you don't have that rule in place. The top 6 players from one country will be playing for the one team in their domestic competition. So effectively, this rule needs to be put in place just so for the evenness of the comp, but also for the player to have the ability to play for a franchise, which is where they're from. If they want to play for the franchise they're affiliated with, obviously they can do that. It's their choice. But this is just to an important rule that would have to be put into contracts if this is how it goes. And that finishes off my first thing that I believe will be the case in 50 years' time, and franchises and boards fighting for control of cricket and the sort of contracts that will be put out there. All right, on to the second thing I believe will be the case in 50 years' time, and that is international windows in cricket. Now, international cricket will always be the cornerstone and the top level of cricket. I don't think there's any way of taking that away, but if franchises are going to control the monopoly of cricket, they're going to have to become inventive in being able to have set windows and set times to play cricket so the top players can play for their country. And this is where the idea of international windows come in. So effectively similar to football or soccer, there'll be 3 or 4 international windows a year. They can range from 2 to 6 weeks in length, and over a course of a 2-year period, a maximum of 3 4+ week international windows can occur. This is effectively for like the World Cups, given the extended length, but also the 5 Test series you have between Australia, England, and India. You're not going to get too much of this for the smaller countries or countries that don't play 5 Test series like New Zealand, South Africa, and many others. But effectively, that's in place for the bigger countries, so their players aren't playing international cricket all year. This would be supported by 4-day Test matches, so 96 overs per day. That means you effectively, you're adding 6 overs a day for 4 days, so 24 overs. I think you end up about 66 overs less in total, and the length of day can be extended for an hour. So at the moment, we all know that the over rates they're woeful. So effectively, you add another hour for an extra 6 overs. You effectively get the extra overs in, and maybe there can be some other things that can be added as well. Down below, I have an example window. So let's say you have the first window, February 16, March 11. Now, I didn't mention this before, and I should have, but the windows will effectively work on like the seasons for being able to play international cricket. So you think about it. A lot of India, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, the best time to play cricket in their countries is beginning of February, beginning of March. In England, it's June. In October and November, you can play New Zealand, India. Like even in February, March, you can play in New Zealand. You can play in October and November. You can play in Australia. December and January, you can play Australia, South Africa. You got options at different times of years, but it's also being able to fit it around the current IPL, because the IPL will always be the mega tournament. There's no doubt about it. So as you can see here, I got February 16 to March 11, June 21 to the August 3rd. That means in that time you could play the IPL, that's your main tournament. But from August 3rd to October 21, there's no tournament. In that time, usually you have Major League Cricket in the US. You've also got the Caribbean Premier League, the 100 in England. And then between November 10 and December 1st, you can have a small window to play some 2010 leagues. Then another window, December 1 to January 10th. That works out well, because then as soon as that's done, the Australian players could go back to the Big Bash, or you got the South African league there. That let's say they have two or three Test matches at the beginning of December, they'll be able to start their South African 2020 league in January. So these windows don't have to be. These windows are allocated where teams get. Let me rephrase that. These windows are allocated so teams get priority to players in this time. But let's say they're only playing for 3 weeks in this time. Players outside of those 3 weeks can still be playing for franchises. So it's not that they're not available during that time. It's just only when their teams are playing and they've agreed to play for their country. So this is how I can see internationals working out and international windows working out. And let's move on to my lucky last, number 3. All right, so this is my third and final one. This idea has been floated around a bit in 2 divisions, but I believe 3 divisions is the future of Test cricket. And effectively, my reasoning for this is Australia, England, and India, they're in a tier of their own. Doesn't mean they're better than all the other teams, no, but they effectively play longer series and draw finances for other teams in Divisions 2 and Divisions 3 when they play. So having them in their own tier enables those teams to generate that monopoly for them, but also effectively plan series against teams in the other divisions as well. In Division 2, I have Pakistan, Sri Lanka, New Zealand, and South Africa. You might notice a team called West Indies, and maybe some people might say Bangladesh, not in Division 2. This is on the basis of performance and also where is cricket heading. Like, I believe Pakistan, Sri Lanka, New Zealand, and South Africa will always have strong teams. And then West Indies, Bangladesh, you just don't know the direction. I think with these 3 division windows, I think you've got to be quite open, being able to move teams depending on performance over years as well. So it's not the be all and end all being in one division over the other, but I think it should certainly be based on performance and incentivizing performance, and that's what I'll show on my next slide on how this model will work. So as I just mentioned, this is my model for how this will work. Now, there's no point having 3 divisions without no model for teams to being able to play each other. So here's my model. Might be a bit of writing on screen, but I'll go through it and hopefully you all can understand. So this will effectively be a 4-year cycle. I believe you can still have the 2-year Test Championship, or the Test Championship every 2 years. But having this as a 4-year cycle, it just makes it easier to go through, because if I go 2-year cycle, the numbers might not add up. So 4-year cycle is pretty effective in being able to get everything I want to explain through. So for the Division 1 teams, they'll play each other twice at home and twice away in a 4-year period, which is effectively what they do now. Australia play England and India at home every 4 years and then travel every 4 years. It's the exact same as what we do now. This will be, as we all know, when we play England or India. They're your only Test matches for the summer. So that's 2 of your summers and 2 of your winters done for teams from Division 1. But that still leaves 2 winters and 2 summers as well, and being able to fit this into a international window. So effectively, Division 1 teams will play 3 home and 3 away series in this time against Division 2 teams, and then they'll also play 1 home and or away game, 1 and or away series against a Div 3 side. What this does is, if you're in Division 2, you're a good Test match side, you're just not one of the ones that play 5 Test matches, so you still get to play one of these teams at home and away in a 4-year period, or home and or away. You'll get to play 2 home and away in an 8-year period, or 1 home, 2 away in that 8-year period, effectively. And that is what they do now currently as well, but being able to fit it into timelines and put it into words like this just makes it clearer. And then playing 1 home and or away game against a Div 3 side, what that does is that, as I'll explain before, is that you'll play the top Div 3 side from that 2 years before, from that first 2-year cycle of the World Test Championship. So this incentivizes winning, and the top team in that World Test Championship will play in that next cycle. Or the top team in Division 3 in that Test Championship cycle, the 4-year cycle, will get to play series against a Division 1 team, because they've earned the right. They've won their series and they've earned the right to get that chance. In fact, I might just skip Div 2 and might go straight to Div 3 to explain that. So Div 3 teams will play 3 home and away series against Div 3 sides. Then they'll play 1 home and away series against Div 2 sides in a 4-year period. So obviously, Div 3 sides are not going to play as much Test cricket in that time. So 3 home and away series, 1 home and away series, that's effectively 1 home and 1 away series a year. But then the top 2 ranked Division 3 teams get to play Div 1 sides. So the top 2 teams there, let's say they're West Indies and Bangladesh. Let's say West Indies finish first. They get to play a home and away series, because there's 3 teams in Division 1. That means there's 3 series that can be allocated if you're playing home or away in that next cycle. So if you're the top side, you get to play a home and an away series against the Division 1 teams, 2 separate Division 1 teams. But if you come second, you get to play a home and or away, one or the other, in that next cycle. So what this does is this incentivizes Division 3 teams that play well. They get to play Division 1 teams, and they've earned the right to play Division 1 teams, because and then they also still get the chance to play 1 home and away series against the Div 2 side in that period, which is what they do now. And when you look at Test matches at the moment, West Indies play Bangladesh. I think they've played Bangladesh more than they've played any other team in the last few years, other than maybe Australia and England. I'm not too sure about England. Because they like playing the West Indies, but like I know the West Indies, like when you look at all the other teams, they've played Bangladesh more, so it's not too much of a difference to what they're doing now. This just incentivizes winning. Now I'll head back up to Division 2. So Division 2 teams will play a minimum of one home and away series against Division 1 side in that 4-year period. So if a home and away side's going to play, I guess, 3 in that period, home and away, there's 6 there. There's only 4 teams in Division 2. So effectively, you get 1.5 series every 4 years cycle at home and away. So effectively, over in 8 years, you get 3 home and 3 away. Oh no, yeah, 3 home and 3 away in that cycle. The reason I play minimum 1 home and away is you can't really put 1.5. It just looks, it's harder to understand. They also, in that time, they get to play 2 home and 2 away series against Division 2 sides. So other than their I guess years other than their time playing Division 1 teams, they get to play 2 home and 2 away series against Division 2 sides, test where they are against people of the same level, and then they also get to play they get to play 1 home and away series against Division 3 sides as well. So this is to balance it out, so teams in all divisions get to play each other, or other than maybe Div 3, but Div 3 teams own the right to play Division 1 teams by performance. So effectively, this incentivizes performance, but also sets a clear structure of test matches that each team will be played in a cycle, but also being able to set international windows. It'll be very clear for teams to prepare and get ahead, but also allow franchise leagues to set up their times years playing. It'll be easier to get contracts. So being able to have franchises have contracts, international windows, and then having test divisions and being able to set up a clear plan for how that all works. That is my opinion, how Test cricket will be in 50 years' time. Well, not Test cricket in general, and I believe it would be for the better. I think this would protect Test cricket, preserve Test cricket, seeing it be able to be played, incentivizing it, but also players having the power to play 2020 leagues throughout their whole season. And that's not take away from the domestic leagues either. Like I know in Australia you got the Sheffield Shield and you got county. Like that will still be a thing for players on the rise. But if players are good enough, they have the right to sign with franchises to play. So effectively, this is what I believe cricket will look like in 50 years' time and how it could potentially work. So I hope you all enjoyed my video. I hope you found some of these things interesting. If you have your own ideas on what cricket will look like in 50 years' time, you'd want to mention it, feel free to mention it in the comments. I'm always up for discussion and debate. I think it's only good to have this because all we're trying to do is make cricket better and make it just enjoyable to watch, because we all don't want to lose the sport we love, but we also want to see it grow and get better. So hopefully you all enjoyed. My name's Nick, and I'll see you next time.